Hey, you have some material, no, for today's pod.
No,
You only change. They fuck you. I only changed the topic.
as if I had the material for the previous topic. You wanted to travel, we can do. I'm same level only for both. Don't blame it on me.
Leftover lasagne.
Leftover lasagna.
Lasagna, no way.
It's a type of sandwich.
Some kind of gross pasta.
Leftover
Leftover
Lasagna is a
podcast
hosted by
my
Nitin
charge
and Tony Uncle. Leftover Lasagna.
Very funny name.
Hello and welcome to Leftover Lasagne, the podcast that chooses not to look down at the gutter that the world has become and instead looks up at the sky full of stars above our heads and asks, "Day, who stole our roof, da?" I am Tony, the guy who likes looking at the night sky and wonders if she could get any more gorgeous, mostly because I'm seeing it in a planetarium, because I live in Mumbai and the best possible AQI reads fuck all. And joining me is the man who raises the roof and puts stars in people's eyes. The man who, when he sees people, has to ask, "Is that a pole star in your pocket, or are you happy to see me?" Say hi, Nitin Sudesh.
Hello, Tony. Hello from Dubai, where the AQI is a very sobering. I don't know. It was 190 or something earlier today, so not very good
Wow.
here
What,
either.
really?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's not like there are any
Dubai is also
fossil
fucked.
fuels. It's not like any fossil fuels are burning here. What a surprise! but
No, but the surprise is that Dubai doesn't have a restriction on fireworks. Because famously,
yeah,
Nitin Sudhir, since the last time we recorded an episode on this podcast, many things have changed, right? Like the last time we recorded a episode of this podcast, people still had hopes that India would do something in the BGT, right?
what is BGT? You'll have to explain it to our non-cricketing listeners.
Yeah. The Border Gavaskar Trophy, which Nitin went with his lovely family to watch, right? The last time we recorded an episode, people were actually looking forward to Christmas and New Year resolutions were still a thing. Are you
Yeah.
familiar with the fatty solstice, Nitin Sundar?
I can kind of guess what it is. Is it halfway
What is it?
through January when people stop, paying heed to their New Year
Exactly.
resolutions?
So, do you remember this wonderful app called Foursquare, which I think predated Twitter and all of that? The point
Around
of
that
which
time,
none of
I
us
am the
thought.
mayor of Guduvanjeri, that kind of stuff.
Correct. Not Guduvanjeri.
Whichever
Like
place you want to be.
gold gym in Guduvanjeri, like that. Something like that. Or Nayar's tea stall in Guduvanjeri, like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
That one. Yeah.
yeah,
So basically, Foursquare, all you could do was check into places
yeah.
and become mayor and
Squire,
counselor and like
yeah.
corporator and all of these things,
Assistant
right?
Pro Vice Chancellor.
Yeah, something assistant Vice Chancellor of Gangotri. Day, that is me only. Da. What happened was because this social network used to only store location data, it was possible for them to actually estimate the date in January where the number of McDonald's visits suddenly exceeded the number of gym visits, right? Because like
Okay.
people towards the beginning of the year would like try to avoid junk food
Hmm.
and would like try to go to the gym more.
Yeah.
And I think the date they came up with was around the 21st of January or something, where McDonald's like rapidly overtook gym visits, right?
Catch us
That
up
is
with the
what
required
caused
run
the
rate, in
fatty
other words.
solstice.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah, so we are
Yeah, so
heading
it's been a
headlong.
long time. It's
Yeah,
been more than a month
yeah,
since we recorded an episode of Leftover Lasagne,
yeah.
and six of our six listeners, some who call it leftover
Leftover
pizza.
pizza. The term leftover pizza, right, reminds me of that scene from Breaking Bad, where Walter White throws that pizza and it lands
Oh
beautifully on the
yeah,
roof. Yeah,
yeah.
that's
Right.
pizza that
Yeah.
he brought to his.
On the roof in the rain.
Yeah, keeping the
Yeah, no,
references going.
we spoke of raising the roofs. Yeah, so
Indeed.
that pizza would have fallen on our faces because someone stole our roof. But
Yeah.
basically, to all our six listeners, Happy New Year to all of them, and to you also, Nitin Sundar.
Thank you very
How
much.
has
Thank
it
you.
been in a leftover lasagna less world?
Yeah, I still keep thinking about that Australia visit. Before going to Melbourne and Sydney to watch the cricket, I spent a few days in Tasmania. And since you mentioned stars and air quality, I remember this one night in Tasmania, in rural Tasmania,
Hey, call it tacit. Come on.
Tassie, Tassie on the Barbie. The air quality, or rather, the sky was so clear in the night that I think for the first time in my life, I was able to see the band of stars that makes the Milky Way,
Wow.
and that
Great.
was quite something. Yeah. Unfortunately, ever since every time I look up at the sky and try to compare it with that night, and yeah, it's yet to have a night of such clear skies uh, from that day.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed the band of stars? Whenever you go to a rural place away from the lights, do look
Yeah,
up?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, so like growing up, there were enough like relatives in like far off places that night sky was always fascinating
Yeah.
to me, man. Like
Yeah. In fact,
when we were in IM Kozhikode, there was this thing called Astro Cult, which one of our friends started. And like IMK is basically located on two hills. Okay, so one is the hill where all the action takes place. The other is like a more like a faculty kind of hill.
hmm.
But you can basically like go up there and like just look up and like shit tons of stars. Right, like it was gorgeous. So yeah, stars have always fascinated me, but you know the reason why I led with stars is like
Oh, I didn't
this
know. Please
episode
tell
apparently is
me.
something.
Wow. I'm curious.
This is where we intersperse your quote, which has been recorded before we started the episode. Where is it? Yeah, we could do travel also. No, but Nitin, please lead us into the topic that you so wonderfully came up with.
So, since we started off talking about the Border Gavaskar Trophy and the cricket, and now is one of those times in Indian cricket where even people who don't actually follow cricket might be getting hit by the stray news that is, and there has been 24/7 news now around the Indian cricket team following their abject performance in Australia, and all sorts of controversies around. The senior players, which is Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli, the coach, who is Gautam Gambhir, and about discipline, and about the superstars in the team having their own way, and how the coach and some of the administrators are trying to curb that. So we've been going through that phase as cricket fans, and on my flight back from Australia, I happened to watch this movie, which was a movie I have always meant to watch but never actually got around to. And it's funny, sometimes on flights you end up with a catalog of movies, and because you don't have any other option, you turn to some of these.
Famously, I said how you love like flying because
Hmm.
you get to watch random movies on the plane. Like you love flying.
Yeah, I do, I absolutely, but I should have expressed the caveat when I said this, which is that Air India is not one of the airlines in which you want to be flying. So, for the record, this flight it's from Sydney to New Delhi, right, and then from New Delhi to Dubai. The Sydney to New Delhi leg is one of the longest flights that I've been on. It's some 13, 14 hours long flight. Nothing in that plane was working. Like the entertainment screens were not working. They were there, but they were not working. The reading lights were not working. The light that you press in order to call the attendant to check on you was not working. What you had was a crew of the Air India crew was very nice and apologetic, right? They were actually
Correct,
try to
correct,
explain to
correct.
you, हाँ ये सब काम नहीं करता है सर, कुछ नहीं चलता है यहाँ पे, कोई ये नहीं है, यूसी नहीं है, ट्राई करने में कोई फायदा नहीं है. आप ऐसे ही बैठिए. They are like being apologetic. They are not even like, yeah, it's not like you're unlucky. Everyone on this flight is not getting to enjoy
This
anything
is
right
true.
now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but they still had some kind of airplane Wi-Fi through which you could watch their catalog of movies on your phone, right? And thankfully, they had a way to charge your phone, so I was at least able to watch something. So the movie that I picked was this movie called Fan, right? Which is I think it came in
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
2015, 2016. So Fan is the Shah Rukh Khan film in which Shah Rukh Khan plays two roles, right? And one of those roles, he literally plays himself, right? He doesn't call himself
Right.
Shah Rukh Khan in the film. He calls himself Aryan Khan, which is funny because his son's name is Aryan. But it's a very self-aware portrayal of superstar of Shah Rukh Khan's stature, and he plays it really well, by the way. But
Right.
that's not the titular character. The titular character is this person who looks exactly, or not exactly, but has a striking resemblance to the actor, and also happens to be that actor's biggest fan, right? And he has modeled his entire life on uh, looking like and behaving like the star. And he goes to competitions where he wins prizes for being like the best lookalike of the star and all of that. And his only ambition in his entire life is to go one day to Bombay and stand outside that house and to get the attention of the star and to actually give the trophy that he won in one of those competitions to the star, right?
Right.
And this movie is about how his expectations of how the star would be welcoming and might actually give him some time and be happy to see the gift that he's giving him, how that does not pan out, and the star treats him the way any star who has millions of fans would treat one rando who shows up at his doorstep. And it's then about how he tries and takes revenge on him, right? So it's a movie about fan culture, about how toxic fan culture can be, and about what it means to be a star who has that kind of fan following, and what it means for one of the millions of fans who is sort of can't see or look beyond that star in every waking moment of his life. Now, in my opinion, one of the best Shah Rukh Khan films I've seen. I think it's not a great film, by the way. It falls short of being a
Yeah.
great film because it takes a few cinematic liberties that tend to make you, that pulls you out of the moment, so to speak. But still a very, very good film, a very impactful film. And like I mentioned on one of the earlier episodes, movies tend to hit you more deeply when you're on a flight because of the rarefied air and all of that. So it's
Okay.
true. This is true. So this
Yeah.
movie came in 2016 or so. It was in the middle of a lot of, actually not the best phase in Shah Rukh Khan's career, but regardless, this movie was not a big hit. Okay, and I
Yeah.
feel one of the reasons it might not have done too well was because it it cuts very close to reality, right? It
Yeah.
literally shows Shah Rukh Khan's fans exactly
Yeah.
what's wrong with their worldview and
Yeah.
the way they look at their star and all of that. And I mean, yeah, that so ever since then, that plus the cricket thing plus the fact that we are Indians means we are exposed to movies and we are exposed to heroes, and we all have our heroes, right? As much as we claim to not have them. So yeah, so this is about star culture and hero worship and whatnot. So that's what I wanted to talk about today.
Can I just can I confess something to you?
Go for it.
Ever since you mentioned the word how do you say it? Titular? Obviously, you said titular, and I was like, wait, is it titular? And then I was immediately reminded of this post where, and it connects back to what you said earlier, which is, I'm guessing why I got reminded of it, but who can know for sure? Where I think it was on Reddit or something, where someone said, wait, are we called mammals after mammary glands? Right? Like,
Huh.
are we like the boobs class? Like, because we're named after tits, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Oh.
and basically, someone else also pointed out that our entire galaxy, which is Milky Way, is named after boob juice, right? Like, galaxy
Wow.
also comes from the Greek word gala, which means milk. So
Oh, really?
basically, it's like twice boob juice. So yeah, I don't know
It's
if it's
basically full fat.
titular
The
character,
Milky Way is
titular
full fat.
character. Yeah, full fat.
Amazing.
Yeah,
I
no.
hope,
So
dear six listeners, I hope you understand the kind of synapses that are firing in our brains. Because if you do, then you might actually appreciate this entire chain of thought. If not, you'll be like, what are these
oh,
morons blabbering? Yeah.
another random diversion based on what you said is that we keep obsessing about the number of, although we don't, we keep obsessing about the number of listeners. And there's this podcast which is called How to Do Everything, right? And basically they're talking about how they got a question. Like, how to do everything is literally how to do everything. You can ask them
Mm,
a question about anything and then they'll figure out what's the right way to do it, right? Like how
mm.
to cure hiccups, or like why do
Ah,
people yawn contagiously, etc., etc. So one of the questions they got, I'm not sure if it's sarcastic or sincere, right? And their basic point is that at the end of the day, all entertainers are like children with fragile egos,
mm.
and like they feel more attacked than other people, which will probably relate to star culture.
Yeah.
But the second point is that this was on the Bugle this week, where Nish Kumar was talking about basically how most comedians slash entertainers are neurospicy, right? Which is like the new word for neurodivergent. I think he called it neurodivergent only, right? And calling it neurodivergent is doing it a disservice because it's not like the normal is normal. So, which is why the newer term is to call like normal people neuro bland and to call people like ourselves neurospicy because like you make random jumps and connections, which is basically what ends up as a joke, right? So therefore, like, do not blame us why these random connections are happening. It is the only reason why we feel like we are entertaining to each other is that literally I say something and it's like, oh, this reminds me of totally unconnected thing that I heard about
Yeah,
in third standard, right? So this is
correct.
the podcast. Welcome back and
Yeah.
hello to 2025 to all of our listeners.
If you have landed up on this podcast as a New Year resolution to support some niche podcasts, and instead of going to Bugle, which is Nish Kumar's podcast, you landed up at Leftover Lasagne, which is the Nish Kumar podcast. I think it is beholden upon us to explain that joke once again, just so that you don't miss it. So, in my monologue about Fan, I mentioned Shah Rukh Khan plays the titular character, and when I said that, Tony got distracted and was wondering should it be titular or titular for some reason, and obviously the tit joke, and started thinking about the word titular and about tits, and then went into the Milky Way and galaxy,
Correct.
both of which are
Mammals.
and mammals, which is of course our
Yeah.
classification, which makes
Species,
us
yeah.
the titular characters whose names
Evolve.
themselves
Correct.
arise from tits. Right, that's true for us, for
Yeah.
the Milky Way, and for galaxy itself. So, in a sense, all of existence itself comes via milk. So, yeah, that's a yes. And this connects back to stars and star culture and
Correct.
stars in the sky and roofs. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you, dear listener, for staying along for the ride. We promise to go somewhere with this now. No, so when I think about stars and I think about you, I obviously think about your very, very deep affection for Sanju
Yeah.
Samson,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
The
Correct.
Kerala cricketer. I refer to him as the Kerala cricketer. I don't know if he's an India cricketer or Rajasthan cricketer. No, he's also one
Yeah.
of the,
No,
probably
but
the first
actually,
name in
calling
the
him
Indian.
Kerala cricketer is in
Yeah.
fact the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, he's
Given
run into trouble with the Kerala Cricket Association as recently as yesterday, or was it today?
today.
Yeah. But arguably one of the first names in the Indian 2020 international squad right now, having recently scored a couple of big centuries, also 3 centuries in
Correct.
6 games or something like that.
Yeah. Something like that.
Opening the innings, right, which is a role that he has landed in the last few months.
Yeah.
And we hope, I'm not as crazy about Sanju Samson as Tony is, but definitely feel he's set up for big things in the coming year. But Tony, you do spend an
Yeah.
inordinate amount of time thinking about Sanju Samson. So in a sense, you are a super fan of Sanju. Why don't you tell us what Sanju makes you feel? And is,
Yeah.
I mean, if I were to define you as a super fan of anybody, it would be Sanju Samson. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is there someone else who you think about more fondly, in the celebrity space
Are
than
you
Sanju
just
Samson?
fishing for compliments right now? Like, you want me to say it's you? It's always been just you.
Oh my God, no,
Nitin Sunil.
I'm not a tit, please. Not
Yeah,
going to
no,
milk your love for all it's worth. Yeah, anyway.
The fun part about your assumption is that you already know that like my son, my second child, is named Rafael, right? Like after Rafael Nadal. And like if he was recording in another room, there'd be like a Rafael Nadal, this thing behind me. And I think when we started
No, recording in this room itself, Rafa has often been a part of this podcast because from whichever room he is, he adds to the soundscape. So, yes.
Yeah. And if I think when we started recording bits and pieces, behind me was like a mural of Virat Kohli, right? Like
Oh, it's
where
been torn apart now, sadly.
yeah, because my that was my like dad and mom's home, right? So they repainted. So when they came for Christmas, dad felt it necessary to tell me as we were watching the Boxing Day test, why the fuck is this guy still playing? Good thing we painted over him when we I was like, okay, uncalled for that, but yeah, fair, like fair.
You know the symbolism here, right? Kohli's glorious years were when Ravi Shastri was the coach of the Indian team, and they came to an end when Rahul Dravid, the wall, became the coach of the Indian team. So painting over the wall is a very apt way to end the Kohli era. So yeah, go on.
Yeah. Yeah. GG, well played. Good game, well played. So the point being that as long as I've uh, grown up, right, I've always had some sports person or the other that's always been top of mind, right? Like whether it's David Beckham, Sachin Tendulkar, or like Rafael Nadal or Virat Kohli or now Sanju Samson. And I find it that there is a very big distinction for me, at least, between, let's say, sports and movies and maybe like politics or the great man theory and all that. And the way we relate to stars in each of them is very, very different, right? Like, and to me, sports is the easiest in where I am okay to be a fan of someone, and it's usually the case that they possibly have some kind of link to me or some kind of contradiction to me, right? Like in the case of Kohli and Nadal, it coincided with my kind of age, right? And like I could see what I wanted to be in them and like sort of try to emulate, right? Like in the sense that they're peers, right? In the case of Sanju Samson, it's very different. And so, just to explain Virat Kohli and Rafael Nadal, it was like, you're getting sort of into college and into corporate world and all that, and you're thinking of yourself as like, this guy who can make big change and like people don't get, and like it doesn't matter, you're unconventional, and like you can do things, right? And like that fades away over a period of time, and then you're still sort of saying that what we will be, etc., etc., till a certain point in time. With Sanju Samson, it is very different because he's much younger. Obviously, the connection with Kerala is very, very strong, and the sense of how he's been unfairly done has lingered for a long time. But also, what I want to say is that the ability to fall in love probably diminishes as you grow older, right? And you get more and more cynical. Not just fall in love with, let's say, sports people or like celebrities, but like just fall in love in general, right? Because the first time you're falling in love, you probably watched a Gautam Vasudev Menon movie, and you're feeling like, or who was the director of 96? That guy, right? Like that guy. Like you're not thinking of a scenario where you could ever fall out of love with it.
96, the Tamil film starring Tony's favorite actor Vijay Sethupathi
Which is
and Trisha, which was directed by Prem Kumar. Right? Do check
yeah,
out the film. One of us on this
yeah.
podcast loves the film. Yeah. Enough said.
So this is my confession, right? Is that probably I actually like relate to 96 so much so that I hate it now, because like it feels like so stupid to be so sincerely in love when you know very clearly that there is no such thing as true love, right? But the place where you can invest wholeheartedly without it affecting your entire life is in sports, where you can walk away, right? Like fine, Sanju, that, this, and the other, but like 2 years from now, I'd probably like walk away without having my heart completely broken in that sense, right? So that is why for me it like takes you to the peak of what you can feel, because like um, always in such investments, right? Whether it's love or in sports, the return you get is as much as you invest, right? Like, so if people don't invest as much of their heart into it, they don't feel the same amount of heartbreak, or they don't reap the same kind of rewards, right? Which is why I've always been fascinated by you watching sports as a neutral fan, right?
Hmm.
And like to me, it is all about the feeling, right? I'm all in on the feeling, and
Interesting.
that's the whole thing behind Sanju Samson. I don't know if it made sense.
No, you made sense. And in fact, I have a couple of follow up questions, right? One is, see, you mentioned Kohli, Nadal, and Sanju, right?
Yeah,
Two of these are very different from the third one, right? Two of these are
correct, correct. Yeah.
superstars in their respective sports. And then there
Hmm.
is Sanju Samson. So,
Correct.
firstly, so my first question is that, right? So, if we were to trace back in time, and all these three are, sportsmen from or sports people from the, I would say from your youth, right? Like post
Yeah,
20s
yeah,
or
yeah,
late teens kind of thing. I want to know who
yeah,
was your sporting hero as a child, and I want to see
yeah,
if there is a pattern there, right? So I will come to why. Did you have a sporting hero when you were in school?
yeah. So can I read from my own blog if that's
Please
allowed?
do. Yeah. About time we started plugging our own content on this podcast.
So there was this semi-final that I watched at the Wankhede, right? And it started with actually Sachin Tendulkar and David Beckham walking out because UNICEF was like represented at the World Cup, and 2023, the
Ah,
One Day World Cup,
okay,
which happened
cool.
in India, the
Go on, go on.
finals in Ahmedabad, which we've all forgotten. So
No,
till the
no, I
semi-final,
remember
I
it,
was
but my question was about your childhood. But you've gone to 2023, which is fine. Go on.
correct. Yeah.
Tony's not that young,
So
guys.
okay.
Go on.
Sachin Tendulkar walks out of the World Cup. He invites his friend David Beckham to join him. Between the two of them, these two all time greats have taken the center stage of the theatre of dreams of my childhood. Partial to a pun here also. I have never been much for technique or form, but I'm all in on the feeling. And no one made you feel more than Sachin and Beckham. My best memories from childhood have commentary accompanied with it. Beckham! Oh, beautiful goal! Or Sachin Tendulkar, what a player! They're dancing in the all of that, right? Yeah. I'm watching them from a few feet away. I should be over the moon. Instead, I feel nothing. I have always envied sports gods. Mortals like us live but one life and never get to hear the kind words spoken about us after we are gone. Sports gods live two lives. The first ends when they decide they've run their race or their bodies do it for them. They get to soak in the final applause and they get to read every kind obituary about their first life. And then they get to live a second life all over again. Nothing could be better. Now, I'm not so sure. It feels like a curse. Living out a past life as tired cliches, slapping on plastic smiles for photo ops and causes that sound important. But do they really care about these causes? Being pressed to repackage a past life over and over again, but not with the booming voice of Tony Gregg or Martin Tyler doing it for you, with your own words and voice. Maybe I'm getting older and more cynical. Maybe it's not that sports gods have a first life and then a cursed second one forced to relive the older one. Maybe it's that we go through childlike wonder and excitement only once, till the enormity and the certainty of the world wears us down, till all you see are cliches. The post goes on, but I think this covers the part that I wanted to speak about. I don't know if it answered your question.
It not entirely, but regardless, it was a wonderful, wonderful passage that you read out. And they don't laugh now. I'm also telling with feeling only. No, so
Tell.
Tony's recent blog, which I think it's been active now for what, 1.5 years or so, right? I remember you were writing around the time of that World Cup, not very actively in the
Yeah,
last few days. For some reason, you write long passages and post them as Instagram stories these days, which is again very clever use of medium for the wrong message, I must say.
correct.
But we shall plug it in the show notes. Please do go and read the recent posts in Tony's blog. They are wonderful, including this one, where he also goes on to talk about Virat Kohli's magnificent 100, which I think also
Yeah, it
broke.
was the same post. This
I
is the
know, yeah,
same post
I know
actually.
that, yeah. Which if I remember right, also breaks Tendulkar's record for one-day
Correct.
centuries or something of that sort, right?
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
link
yeah,
that back. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and it's a wonderful post, a very evocative post. And yeah, if there's one person that Tony is as crazy off as Sanju Samson, then that was Virat Kohli. But I think the love has faded. It's not really faded. I
Yeah,
think Tony has come to reckon with the mortality of Virat Kohli and his ways, which
absolutely.
is fine,
No, so the
as we all
interesting
should.
thing here
Yeah,
is as much as I spoke about Rafael Nadal and Virat Kohli, when Nadal retired, right? Like lots of people like reached out to me saying, "What do you feel? How do you feel? Like, are you gonna write a post?"
yeah.
And it didn't like strike me at all as something that I wanted to do, right? Like because the feeling has long passed. Like
Hmm.
it's been like for tennis players, the advantage is you don't have to quit till your body tells you not to, right? Like even Federer like can stay on as long as he wants, as opposed to cricket technically, which is a
Yeah.
team sport, unless you're MS Dhoni. You pretty much are forced to go outside, right? Like so, there's a difference. But
We shall not
my
take that
feeling
dig
is
at MS Dhoni quietly. After you wrote him off, he won 3 titles for his team. Yeah, anyway, go on.
superb, that's superb. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. So the whole point being that my fandom is entirely linked to this ability to fully invest and fall in love without a perpetual heartbreak, right? Like
That part is
intermediate
clear.
heartbreaks
Yeah.
are okay. That is how love works. But yeah, that's what it is.
In your childhood, when you were in school,
Yeah,
before Kohli
Sachin,
and
Sachin,
it was
David
Sachin.
Beckham. Yeah,
Oh, it was
and
actually
David
Sachin and
Beckham.
Tendulkar. Okay, I thought that
Yeah,
was
correct.
okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, so you
No, no.
actually
So
got to
like
see all of them
matched him.
uh,
Correct.
on that day. Oh, I didn't know the Sachin and Beckham angle. Yeah, so because I only known you post Sachin, right? And from
Yeah.
whatever I've seen and heard from
Obviously.
you, I had no idea that you once had a fond corner in your heart for
Yeah.
Sachin.
Correct. Despite me actually like actively declining to be named as Sachin,
Oh
only
yeah,
for my brother to be named,
yeah,
as we mentioned like 4 times on this podcast, right? Yeah. So
yeah.
Sachin and Beckham, which is why I thought like it was relevant to your question, right? So
Perfect. Yeah, yeah.
therefore,
No, it is relevant. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks.
so my question therefore was like, what I can't do is like here there is no sort of willing suspension of disbelief, right?
Yeah.
Like you're living every moment, like they don't know what is coming up next.
Right.
Actually, to be honest, there was Sachin, there was David Beckham, there was also Shawn Michaels from WWE.
Oh yes.
When I didn't believe that WWE is what was scripted and shit like that, right?
Yeah.
Like, but like once I kind of figured it out, that faded away. Like Santa Claus, Shawn Michaels faded away. Then these guys faded away. But to you,
Yeah.
you famously claim to be a neutral sports fan,
Ah.
but also like deeply invested in movies and stuff like that, right? Like
Mm.
where the willing suspension of disbelief has to be brought on to yourself actively. So,
Yeah.
so tell me about the stars in your eyes.
Oh, Shawn Michaels really brings back memories. Was also my favorite wrestler for a while.
Oh, your
Before I
Mithun's
moved on,
favorite was Bret Hart.
he was not into WWF as it was known back then. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that is one. I think Shawn Michaels is the first common link in our fandom, so to speak. But no, yeah, my WWF years were very, very violent and very vigorous, but also very short-lived. I think I moved on from WWF pretty soon. No, I wasn't always this neutral fan or whatever, right? I wasn't always not invested in individuals. I've mentioned this, I think, on various podcasts slash forums to you. I used to be crazy about Ajay Jadeja, right? Who
Oh
was a
yeah.
former Indian cricketer. Yeah, like crazy. Like take your craze for Sanju Samson, multiply that tenfold, uh,
Okay.
and add the twinkle of a schoolboy's eyes to it. Right?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
literally every waking moment is spent thinking about this particular person
Wow.
and what he would do. Yeah, it was almost like that. It was literally like that for a few years. Um, and this was again through very very formative young years, right? I'm talking about
Yeah.
when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, all the way up to I was 15 or 16. When you mentioned heartbreaks, right? And the heartbreaks that and living from heartbreak to heartbreak, or not having to surf that, or not having to
Yeah.
kind of uh, experience the ups and downs, and you can always move away because
Correct.
worst case, what's the big deal? But the worst
Correct.
case, is when it's not your dad painting over a wall and the poster going away, but you yourself having to go and rip a poster off from
Oh.
that wall of yours, right? For something that was done. And for people who don't know or don't remember, Ajay Jadeja was banned from cricket in the early 2000s. This was part of the fallout of the first big match fixing scandal
Yeah.
that hit cricket, right? I vividly remember that day. It was the day after my 10th standard results came out. It was a very, very happy day, right? Because my results had come out and I had very good results, right? And throughout that
Yeah.
10th standard vacation in the year 2000 was when this entire scandal erupted. There was a tournament with South Africa and India, followed by a Sharjah tournament with South Africa and Pakistan, where India played. And all the players who were soon to be banned were all playing in that tournament, right? While these investigations were happening in the back end, and then the Hansi Cronje
Yeah.
revelation comes out, and literally in the space in the space of 2 months, everything changes in cricket, right?
Yeah.
You have
My God. Yeah.
three very very high profile cricketers getting banned, right? Not three, even more than three, right? I remember there were a couple of Pakistani players. There was Hansi Cronje. There were a few others from South Africa who got smaller bans, and there was Mohammad Azharuddin and Ajay Jadeja from the Indian
Yeah.
cricket team, right? And all of this happened in like 2 months, and suddenly I'm like, what the hell just happened, right?
Yeah.
I think something changed when that happened. I think the way I related to individuals and idols and my own tendency to be a fan probably changed at that time. I can't really explain it,
Yeah.
But I think something changed there, and I think since then I've not really had a single sports person that I've looked up to.
My God.
Maybe it's my own form of self-defense, right?
Yeah.
It's just something I formulated. I can't articulate what it was, but yeah, I think that something changed over there.
Just one point
Huh.
there, right? Is
Yeah,
that why that piece about Kohli is special to me, as opposed to the reader, is because there was a point when I definitely fell out of love with Kohli. Right? This was in South Africa in Jan 2022. So yeah, it's not
yeah.
like it's linear, right? In that sense, but yeah.
It's not. And while we of course remember this moment quite vividly, this was Virat Kohli's last Test match as captain, and it ended in defeat and ended in a fairly bitter defeat with Kohli, like you said,
Yeah.
behaving very un-Kohli like. But it was not. He didn't go beyond the point of no return, so to speak, which is typically what
Correct.
happens, right? In the moment, sports people make mistakes. The batsman at the very
Yeah.
best gets out, at the very worst probably
Yeah.
behaves badly, but he's going to come
Correct.
back. He's going to
No,
see
but you're talking about
in
your
the clear
personal
light.
equation with that person, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
but
not
it's
necessarily
it's
the
it's like the personal equation you have with the person you love, right? Whoever it is,
exactly.
it's
That's
never.
what I'm saying. Yeah, that's the parallel.
Yeah, but then what I went through was a little worse than that. It was literally, it was beyond the
Being
point of,
betrayed.
it was beyond the point of no return, right? It wasn't a failure on the field, right? It was far worse than that. But that's okay,
Yeah.
and I'm glad that Virat Kohli came back and gave you that moment at the Wankhede,
Yeah.
which must have been so cathartic and redemptive to experience. And why
Correct.
else are we
At
in our
that point,
midst?
not
Yeah,
now.
that's okay. That's okay. I mean, it is. I
Correct.
mean, it's life, right? People
Of course,
rise
it's
and
like
people fall, as Batman said, right? You either die a hero or you live long enough to become a villain.
yeah,
And yeah, so
exactly. Yeah.
which works very well because, and I think that is the money line really, because the problem is not so much with the heroes. The problem is with the way we look at heroes, because we expect them to be there forever, and
Yeah.
so we are actually painting them, to keep the paint analogy going. We are actually painting them into a corner where they eventually have to become the villains,
True.
because you're not letting
Correct.
them
Absolutely.
go as heroes,
Yeah.
right? It's very
Yeah.
tough for a sports person who has everything to go away quietly. And the problem, we have not seen a single Indian sports person call it quits at the right time, right? A Indian cricketer, let's say, right? Like, name me one Indian cricketer who called it quits at the right moment and left everything,
Yeah.
you know.
No, and I mean, there'll never be anyone who does it, right? Like to your liking.
I actually have this point because this was more about, while we spoke about what sports people make us feel, I also want
Yeah.
to spend a moment talking about what sports people seem to be making the regular people out there feel, right? May not be true for you and me, but we now have
Hmm.
this place where, we start looking at, when I say we, I'm talking about the average fan out there, right? There are these fan armies or these entire
Hmm.
fan groups that now take over the entire internet, where Virat Kohli's fan
Yeah.
army is out there to defend him to death and to
Correct.
slander Rohit Sharma's fan army and Rohit
Of
Sharma,
course. Yeah. Yeah.
and vice
Yeah.
versa.
Yeah.
This is not blaming any one
Correct.
person. And there is Dhoni's fan army going after the others, and the
Yeah.
others going after him, and Gambhir's fans. And so the only time when you would go to such extents to defend a mental construct, right? And it's
Hmm.
if you're a fan of someone, ultimately they are a mental construct. It is some image
Correct.
that you have in your mind of an immortal person, because you
Or
believe,
one that's built up for you to consume.
or one
Because I
that's
think
built
it
up
was on
for
the
you, which
last
you.
episode of this podcast when we spoke about hashtags and Vijay fans versus Ajit fans
Yeah,
in the
exactly. That's the
hashtag
best
wars.
example. Yeah, the hashtag wars, and in the last few days we've seen that happen on in the cricket.
Kusumuji Vijay
Kus-
hashtag.
yeah.
Calling back to our own
Yeah, exactly.
podcast.
And that is, at least there you can say, okay, it's make believe world, right? But when it comes to sports,
Yeah.
it's very easy to see when
Yeah.
somebody is doing well and somebody is past their sell by date. But we have built the image of this, the supreme being in our mind, so in such a big way that beyond a point we are also trying to delude ourselves into believing that they are actually immortal and they cannot make a mistake, to the extent that we'll do all kinds of mental gymnastics to justify the failings and failures of the people we idolize, even if that means slandering someone else who is
Yeah.
questioning very rightfully that person's. And I think that's interesting, right? It just says something about the way our brains are wired. There are far more deep discussions about how Indians in particular, compared to other societies, tend to be more, fan culture is something that is very, very massively, not unique, I would say, but something very prevalent to us. And as cricket fans, we have seen it in operation. So there's no denying it that, we as Indians tend to get very emotional about our heroes.
Yeah, obviously.
And to the extent that it wags the dog, right? It's almost impossible for even the selectors to make the right kind of
Yeah.
calls. But what does that say about us as a people? Is my broad thing, right? We almost equate them to God, and we would never accept if people speak ill of the God that we worship. Then we would definitely go out. We would take, we'd be up in arms and we'd go to war. That's literally what we do for the people we idolize.
So, so you've actually sort of connected a few different things, which is to say, initially we were talking about your one-on-one relationship with a person outside of you, right? Which is where I equated it to like falling in love and all over, and, heartbreak and stuff like that. As opposed to you're now saying that, which is my point also, that your relationship with, let's say, someone in a political leader or a cinema guy, or now as you call it, the sports team or sports person, has also to do with the tribal instinct in us, where it's not just about, this one person sort of maybe representing parts of you that you're not and can be, which is the case with sports people, or like what you wanted to be and like is achieved through your, similar to how you have like hopes that your son will be a cricketer or a tennis player or some of that shit like that, right? I suppose this being a tribal experience where you're like, just by virtue of being in the sphere of these supporters, you feel elevated, right? Which is the same thing with like, football fandom, or like even voting for a political party that comes to power, right? Like, if you think about it, like most people want to vote for the party that will eventually win, not the
Yeah,
party that they support, which makes no
yeah,
sense, right? Like, I mean, yeah.
yeah.
So there, I think that tribal element is always there, right? So I think it's been a while on this podcast since you mentioned Yuval Noah Harari. So, but I'm sure he has a theory around this, right? That we want to do that.
No, I'm. No, there is obviously, but the part that I'm more interested in is why is this more prevalent in certain societies than in others, right? And
Yeah,
I'm sure he has spoken about that also, just that I'm not aware of it. In fact, I
yeah.
think he's spoken about monotheistic cultures versus polytheistic cultures. Uh,
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
but then it should be the other way around, right?
It's yeah. So I mean, yeah, there's something about pastoral cultures. I remember listening to this in some podcast, which I've completely forgotten. I'm sure I've recommended it to you also. There is way too much content out there, guys. It's tough to remember what you've consumed, which is why it's better to put your blogs on Facebook because nobody will remember them anyway. And on Instagram stories.
Yeah.
Read it now
No,
or
but
you
the
never can. But yeah.
but the broad point is there's a difference between one versus the other. One is the individual relationship versus the tribal relationship, and therefore
Yeah.
how you feel in that moment. Like,
Yeah.
there is legitimately no reason for you to support the Indian cricket team, right? Like, except for the fact that you come from India, right? Or like, there is no reason for me to support, or Srinath Sripath for that matter, to support Manchester United, except that when we grew up and at that particular point in time, something we saw on TV
Yeah.
appealed to us. And
Yeah.
just we just continued following down that route, right? And you started drinking more Kool-Aid in that regard, and just
Yeah.
went down that lane till I stepped off at some point because, like,
See, I've never watched football, so I don't know this experience. But I've actually maybe seen football fans together, anecdotally, in groups. And there
yeah,
is definitely a certain level of a shared experience and a tribal experience amongst fans of a
absolutely.
certain team, right? When you
Hmm.
see Manu fans, for instance, going together to
Yeah,
watch a game, regardless
yeah.
of what the game experience is, you will see that there is a certain feeling of, this is my brethren that one Man United fan
Mm.
has for another, or one,
Correct.
any team. I mentioned this to you before. I was in Spain during a very, very important football game, and that entire
Yeah,
city
yeah.
was taken over by football fans. And you could see that there
Correct.
was a sense of camaraderie amongst every
Of
supporter of that
course.
particular team.
Yeah.
My point is this: when you go to watch a cricket match in India, have you ever experienced an Indian fan express any kind of solidarity or shared experience with another fan. And I'm not done here. When you watch, and this is something that came to my mind while watching Fan, the movie, where this guy has taken a bus or a train, from his village, come to Bombay to stand in front of Shah Rukh Khan and to wave at him. And that entire place is thronging with millions of fans who have come to just look at the hero. And it is
Yeah.
a cutthroat race over there between all of, they are all equally crazy of this one person, right? But it's not like
Yeah.
it's a shared experience. It is a very individual connection that each one of these seems to have with that fan. It's a religious experience they are experiencing with the person they're idolizing. There is no shared
Yeah.
camaraderie there. And I've
Yeah.
honestly never felt shared camaraderie between fans of Indian cricket when I go to watch a
Yeah.
cricket game, or fans of Virat
No.
Kohli. You know who they are because they're wearing the Virat jersey, right? It's not like one Virat jersey looks at another one and says, "Hey, yeah, game knows game,"
Correct.
right? You not even see
Yeah.
that. What is that, and why is that?
Yeah.
Or am I reading too much into this?
So
Same
no,
thing,
I
by the way.
mean,
Same thing. The same thing is true for all Rajni fans or Vijay fans or any kind of fan group that you take in India. Their relationship with their idol is one on one. It's not. It's not. I feel it's
I
not
don't
a
think
tribal.
so. Wait.
Yeah.
No, no. One second. Like Vijay fans was Ajit fans is the real thing. Like
No,
they
that's
get into
because they're
tribes.
taking down the Ajit fans together. But
Okay.
I mean, they're coming together to accomplish something together. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, and in
Yeah,
that
exactly.
sense, yeah, there is strength in
So
numbers.
so that's one part, right? Like the existence of a
If
tribe.
my point is, if they go to a Vijay movie, right? Everyone who's showing up
Yeah.
for a Vijay movie is a Vijay fan. It's
Correct.
not like they share the experience in any way.
Yeah, so that's precisely my point, is that there is no opponent in that case, right? And the
Ah,
definition of a tribe is by virtue of the definition of uh, what is attacking you or what you're against, right? So in the case of football, it became much easier because like it used to be clubs, right? Which meant
yeah,
like there are clubs in the same city, and it started out as like workers, and like it started out for the, in that sense, the lower strata of society, unlike cricket, which is like more posh and stuff like that, where you defined your tribe as saying London, for instance, is like, I don't know, 6, 10, 8, how many ever clubs, right? And it's a battle of saying
interesting.
that I belong to this tribe versus the other one,
Yeah,
right? And therefore the question then becomes like, why should someone in India care about it? Is because they establish it in fairly religious terms, right?
yeah,
With the presence of stuff like rituals, chants, all of these, right? So everyone has a way to relate to each other, whether it's glory, glory, Man United, or you will never walk alone, or any of those like chants or rituals or stories that you've put down. Basically, you put down a Bible, you've put down what the mass kind of thing needs to be, in the sense that, how do you offer mass? Like there are these rituals that we do, and there are these chants that we do, and like it doesn't matter what your native language is, you identify with that, right? So once you formalize it into a tribe to say that these are the rituals that you follow to belong, that's easy for people to
I buy all of
follow,
this.
right?
I buy all of this.
Yeah.
My only question is, I have never experienced this camaraderie amongst fans when I go to a cricket match. I've
No,
Yeah,
you've not experienced it for Indian fans in India.
or in Australia for that matter, where I recently watched a game.
I
They don't really care about each other,
don't
right? They're
know,
just there.
man.
They're there in that shared location. In fact, Australia is a good example because in Melbourne, where
Yeah.
we went for the game, you had a huge turnout. You had a fairly
Mhm.
good split of Indian fans and Australian fans at the ground. Obviously, it never got rowdy or anything, but the match did get close and heated at certain points. I never felt like it's us versus them, right? Or it never felt like, okay, we are in this together. Let me put it that way.
Correct. So again, throwing back to that same semi-final, right? I saw the first half, first Indian innings, sitting around mid wicket, right? And like it was
Yeah.
an individual experience for me. That's the part that I've written the blog about. The second half, I made sure I went to the North Stand gang, which is like a gallery above, where they have a shared experience. Again, like it's like
Huh.
it's watching the group as a collective, and therefore like you have to create that. Maybe like the point is that in India you don't have the time. Cricket, for instance, is not a seasonal sport, right? As
Huh.
opposed to football,
Explain.
where there are like 38 matches in the season and 19 are played in the same stadium, right? Which
Yeah, you might
allows
be
for
right.
you to like create that shared connection and feeling and all that.
I think you're right there. And I think IPL is probably where you might see this happen because you actually have a season and you have a bunch of games happening at one venue over a period of
Hmm.
few weeks.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought of any movie star or pop culture icon the way you have thought about Virat Kohli and Rafael Nadal?
No, not really. That's to me like it requires a willing suspension of disbelief, which I don't find meaning in. Right? But you have, I'm guessing, like Kamal or Rajni.
It's an interesting way you choose to put it, right? So Virat Kohli twirling a bat and hitting
Yeah,
a ball that's coming at him
yeah.
at great pace is art, if you think about it, right?
Mm.
Uh, as much as
Or it's not a one way thing. Right? Like he doesn't the the my objection to calling it art is that in art you're literally fighting yourself as opposed to in sport there is an opponent.
oh, well, okay. Well, it's one form of art, right? Like, okay, so cool. You're coming for a very textbook definition of sport versus art, and
No, I mean I don't have a quibble with
okay.
calling it
I mean, it
just
depends
one
on
by
what the
one. Okay,
adversary is,
yeah.
right? See, the adversary for an artist is ordinariness. The adversary for a sportsman is an opponent, right? But there is an adversary
Hmm.
always,
Hmm.
right? Everyone could play the cover drive, but Virat Kohli is much loved because he plays it better than anybody else to balls that are much better than what anybody else could have played equally well, right?
Hmm.
So in that sense, it is that pursuit of excellence. It doesn't matter. It's the same bowler bowling that ball, right? Whether it's Kohli or
True.
Tendulkar or
Yeah.
Pujara or
Possibly.
Ajay
Yeah.
Jadeja facing it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And in that sense, you can equate the two. But okay, I
No, I think that's a minor point to the larger discussion
huh.
because it's not about sports at all, right? Like we're
It's not. My
thinking
whole
like
point
these are
is the
clear
field doesn't
exceptions.
matter. My whole point is the field doesn't
Correct.
matter,
Correct.
and I find this distinction that you make interesting also because you are actually someone who cares very deeply about movies, right? And you watch a lot of cinema and enjoy it and are deeply invested in it. And but the way you make this delineation is interesting for me. It's not the same for me. Yeah.
Question. Yeah, to that question, I had a quibble with you calling it a Shah Rukh Khan movie, right? Because movies are never about the actors. It
Huh.
always has to be
It's a Manish
about the
Sharma
writer
movie.
slash director.
That's the
Yeah,
name of the
whatever.
director. Yeah.
To me, growing up, watching Mallu movies, and Malayalam is always about the writer, right? Like the writer makes the movie. I
Yeah.
mean, now it's become a lot more director forward, but to me, it's the writer that
Yeah.
makes the movie, right?
Yeah.
So to call it a Shah Rukh Khan movie is it's blasphemy, right? Like there is
I
no
get
Shah
that.
Rukh Khan movie.
No, that's a very fair point as well. So,
Yeah,
but there is no writer that you idolize as much as you idolize Virat Kohli either.
yeah, exactly. No,
So
no, of course. So
that is art.
yeah,
Like writing something on paper is art, right? So,
of course it is. Yeah,
but yeah, according to you, there's no adversary. The adversary is ordinariness, right? They're trying to elevate yourself above the mundane. Like Virat, I can play the cover drive too. It's not that only Virat Kohli
yeah.
can. Just that he can play to better balls and he can play it better than me, right? That's why he's great.
This is a wrong time for you to choose how great he is against the covered, and he's just
Right now, I can actually play it better than him. Take that, Virat.
yeah, okay.
Oh man, indeed, cool. Yeah, so that distinction doesn't exist for me in my mind, right? It's one field was another, and it's about whether I feel passionately enough about that field or not.
Mm.
Interestingly, the only two people I have really idolized, individuals I've idolized over the years. One was Ajay Jadeja, and that stopped at some stage in life. The other has been Kamal Hassan, and that's remained
Yeah.
steady and constant, and it's been a very, very
Yeah.
rewarding sort of
Despite
experience.
the letter Ha not being there in Tamil.
People actually used to call him Kamalagasan
Kamal
in Tamil cinema.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, that has been a very rich and rewarding, meditative almost experience, and remains to be someone who I get
Explain,
very inspired
explain.
by. Nothing. That's just pure excellence, right? It's he would be the equivalent of Sachin if there was a Sachin Tendulkar of acting. I think there is no it's actually 10x of Sachin Tendulkar of acting because this is someone who lives and breathes cinema in a way that can't be really explained in cricketing terms, right? It's
Great.
yeah, and has been very very good at it, and is also it's not just the craft and the art that he brings to it, but also the kind of person he has been to the craft of cinema itself. Like, there are things that he has done behind the scenes to make movies that he has had absolutely no involvement in, do well. There are things he has done for his biggest rival, Rajnikant, for instance, which didn't even make it to the public eye
Yeah.
until Rajnikant said, "So how
Only
Kamal
Rajni,
Hassan hated."
Kamal, and you know about it.
No, now everybody knows about it, but it's stuff that never even was out in public, right? These are things that were done, and we are living in an age where Vijay Dog and Ajit and all that rubbish is happening on Twitter. So to know that in that same time you're also living through an era where a superstar could be all of that, with all the trappings of being in, you know, I mean, being in the part of that toxic fan culture, in a sense, propagating it also. I'm not absolving him of all that criticism or anything, but within the microcosm of what it takes to be
Yeah.
an Indian cinema star, uh, trying and reaching out for excellence all the time, I think uh, he's had a fantastic career, and it's been it's been my privilege to enjoy it. That's about it.
Interestingly, I think it was a couple of weeks ago where Kamal Hassan actually said, "Don't call me Ulaga Nayagan" or
Yeah, I don't
something.
know what
Yeah.
that was. Yeah,
Ulaga
yeah.
Nayagan means what? World leader,
Ula, well, Ulaga Nayagan means world hero. Doesn't mean anything.
world
Yeah,
hero. Huh. No,
yeah.
but like, why did he come out and say it?
I have no idea.
And do you
I,
stand by it as a fan?
I find all these titles quite stupid, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of
Yeah.
them.
Okay.
There is a power star. There is a
No.
top
So,
star. There is a. Yeah, not go
is
there.
there a bottom star?
There is Makkal Selvan. Your favorite Vijay
Okay.
Sethupathi is called Makkal Selvan. Yeah. Tamil cinema has a bunch of problems associated
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
not go there.
Yeah. I, I think it's a good time for us to take the other angle and flip it to say, would you ever want to be a celebrity in India?
Oh
Like I was
God.
having coffee with a friend of mine the other day, and like this is in South Bombay, and like Genelia D'Souza and Ritesh Deshmukh walked in. And the
Yeah.
moment, this is Starbucks, a fairly, in that sense, like I
Yeah.
mean, like no class distinction here. I'm just saying it's not like
Yeah.
it's not like getting mobbed on
Yeah.
in the Wankhede or something like that. And
Yeah.
like from the moment they stepped in
Yeah.
till the moment they stepped out, I think they were there for a like small shoot or something.
Yeah.
About in that 40 minutes, every moment of theirs felt so
It's terrible.
claustrophobic
It's absolutely
watching from
terrible.
a distance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I must actually say two things, right? So once when I was in Park Sheraton, I've never actually been very close to Sachin Tendulkar. As in, I mean, not as I've never gotten, I've not gotten within spitting distance of Sachin Tendulkar, and I'm talking about the year.
Famously, Indians are always spitting. So,
Yeah.
or
I'm talking about
spitting
the year
distance.
2010, right? So the fag end of his career, 10 or 11. Yeah, 2010, 2011. There was this tournament that was happening, and Tendulkar's team was playing, and this was in Chennai. And his team and the other team that was playing were in the Park Sheraton Hotel, and I was working at Cricket for then, and I had gone to Park
Yeah.
Sheraton to meet some other player, like some small player, and interview them or some coach. I don't remember who. And I was in the ground floor lobby, and suddenly there was this electricity that you could feel in the hotel. Like you could hear a lot of people hushing and whispering at the same time, and it was unclear what was happening. I saw a lot of people turning towards the lift, so I also looked at the lift.
Yeah.
And about 5 seconds later, the lift door opens and Sachin Tendulkar walks out with, a few people around him, his usual stuff, and he just basically just
The
walks out of the lift,
posse.
and with his posse, he's just walked out of the lift. He's walking out and exiting the hotel. He's going away, and that entire moment where he was within, whatever I shot, I could hear that buzz and I could feel that electricity. And I remember
Yeah.
thinking at that time, this fellow has led his entire life for 30 years
Yeah.
with this buzz
Correct.
around him. Like, I have
Yeah.
no idea how these people manage it. The other
Yeah.
example, again,
Not
another
possible.
hotel,
Yeah.
is Ritz Carlton in Bangalore, where this is on Residency Road. I used to stay a 5-minute walk from there on Richmond Road. And there is a brew pub there called next to the Ritz Carlton called the Bangalore Brewworks. And I was there with some friends, right, for a few beers. This was during the IPL season. I don't think the entire RCB team was there, but few of their players were there, and I think their team was traveling or something. But anyway, we're
Yeah.
sitting there having a drink. Suddenly, a bunch of people walk in, and I noticed that right in front is Yuzvendra Chahal. Okay, not even the most popular cricketer, I think. There's Chahal, and behind him, I even remember there was Moeen Ali, there was Parthiv Patel, and there was Chris Wokes, the English cricketer. These were all part of RCB at that time. These four guys, and I think Luke Pommersbach, who later got into trouble. These five people walk into the Bangalore Brewworks. I normally am not like, the kind of person who reacts to celebrities. I think I was 2 beers down or something. I said, "Hey, Chahal." I took my phone and I took a picture randomly. That guy's walking into Bangalore Brewers. I take a photo. And he's walking very discreet. Those guys, the entire bunch is walking discreetly, and nobody is actually troubling them, funnily. Okay. Also, because they're not the most popular cricketer. That stage, Chahal was
Yeah.
also not a big deal, and nobody cared for
It's
Partha
not
Patel.
knowledgeable Chennai crowd.
Yeah. If you see Partha Patel in a bar, you're probably asking him for his ID. So it's not like people really even know or care about him.
Even the dosa is taller than me.
Even the dosas taller than me, right? And samosas. But except I didn't realize the flash was on my phone. So it actually flashed very hard and it actually blinded that fellow. And Yuzvendra Chahal was taken aback that suddenly there is a pop, right? And then the light clears out. He looks at me straight in the eye, and he gives me this reaction. He's like, "Why the fuck did you do that?" Literally, he was asking me, "Are you like silly? Like, why did you do that?" Also,
Yeah.
because like you're needlessly drawing attention to me was what he was saying. I'm just coming here quietly to get a drink and go. Like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I remember in that moment, I also looked at him, looked very sheepishly at my phone, and said, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that." And I was embarrassed for the rest of the evening.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is just something that I remember.
No, but
So to answer your question, I wouldn't want to be a celebrity, not just in India. I wouldn't want to be a celebrity
Yeah.
anywhere. The best thing to do
Yeah.
in this current world with the internet and everything is to be anonymous and be normal and
Exactly.
get away with it.
Exactly. But do you think that aspirations changed? At least when we were growing up, for sure,
Yeah.
like you wanted to be like a
Absolutely.
sports
Wanted to
person
be.
or a star or a
I wanted to
something.
win the World Cup final for India. What are you saying?
Correct.
Be a star.
Hitting a
I
six
wanted
of
to-
the last ball.
Yeah, the Nohan Kulasekara's ball was supposed to be bowled at me, not at MS Dhoni. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, but no, it's not just sporting excellence that you were chasing, right? It's not like you wanted
was
like
fame.
a gold medal. Yeah, it was like you wanted to be known. Like
Love
celebrity
and fame. Yeah,
was a big deal, right?
absolutely.
And here's the dichotomy is that you can choose to be R. Ashwin and be the public eye all the time, or like start your own channel and stuff like that. Or it could be someone else, but you're also being forced into a world where you're told that your time is limited, and if you don't claim, stake a claim to fandom, etc., you won't get the kind of endorsements that you do. Right? The other thing that happened through my Substack last year, about 11 months ago, is that I wrote a piece about Sanju Samson, which like someone sent it to him, and then he found it, and he met me. He said like, "Can we meet?" And like we met,
Yeah,
and like we met in like behind like the hotel he was staying at, they set up a private place, and he was like, I'm very grateful I'm here only because of my fans, and like my mentors have been telling me that you have to actually sort of interact with fans a lot more, right? Because they are what make you, and that's what will get you to this thing. So he was like,
5 years from now,
upfront.
leader of the Sanju Samson fan army on Twitter. You are meeting him today on this podcast, guys. It's Tony Sebastian.
No, he was upfront enough to say that
Yeah.
I should do more of this, because not because he wants to, and like I was telling him, like I there are so many people who would want to tell you sorry. I just happened to tell
Yeah.
it in my own words, because like there isn't too much about you, right? And I want to work you out in my head. That's why I wrote it. So he was saying, yeah, no, but I don't want my story to be told.
Yeah.
Or anything like that. There's nothing to say. But at the same time, he was faces the dichotomy of saying that people have asked me to, so I must, which is interesting, right? Like even earlier, it could just be that it's like you are who you are, right? Like, and some person
Yeah.
like Ravi Shastri would, in whatever era he was in, would have been like a
Ravi Shastri.
attractor of cameras. Yeah.
Yes.
But now it's also that there is an added pressure to say you don't know how long fame will last, right? Whether you are a superstar or an influencer, it might just be for a day and a half, right? Like today,
Yeah.
someone was talking about how Luigi Mangione has already been forgotten, and like despite him dominating but like he could have at least signed a few deals, no, in the meantime.
Yeah. No, absolutely, right? You are forgotten very, very fast. And the best example really is Sachin Tendulkar, right? You see him all over the place now. He comes and sits in the dugout for Mumbai Indians, and the camera pans to him. But he's not the star attraction anymore, right? He was not the star attraction. Maybe that day at the Wankhede, because it was the Wankhede when you were there for the World Cup semi-final. But people have forgotten largely, right? A Rohit
Yeah,
Sharma or a Virat Kohli draw much more right now than even a Dhoni, right, who has just barely left the game, and Tendulkar is long forgotten.
yeah,
So this is true.
correct,
And your point about, yeah, you need to be true to yourself. It's easier said than done. I think to an extent,
correct.
your media is not even something that you actively build over a period of time if you're a celebrity. It's something that gets foisted upon you as a crazy mix or a very eclectic mix of your performance and your personality is what I feel.
Mm,
Like,
yeah,
because like who are the exceptions? Like, yeah, you could say a Cheteshwar Pujara, a VVS Lakshman comes to my mind, another player who I was fond of, right? But not to the same extent
yeah,
as what the Jadeja thing was, where I always felt Lakshman was someone who just was himself throughout, and things just happened, and things happened well, and
yeah,
okay, he took things on his stride and went on and did well and remains a decent person on and off the field. I don't know if he's decent off
yeah.
the field, I don't know, whatever. But felt like that kind of person. But to some extent, I think that image was foisted upon him by the player that he was and the performance that he brought to the
Mm,
field. Right? He was
yeah,
never cracked it in one day cricket, was in the
yeah.
pre T20 age. Pujara was a bit like that. So I don't know, right? And you can't fault these players or these sports people for
No, no,
building
of
that
course not.
certain image and
My
going for, yeah.
Yeah, my whole point is that the dual tension between one is that if you're in India, you cannot escape stardom, right? Even if you're
Yeah.
Jenny Leah D'Souza, I don't know what is the last movie she acted in,
Yuzvendra Chahal also.
or
Yeah. Get flashed by
you're
random
in,
fools.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah. Well, my only question for the Starbucks thing was Viral Bayani over there because he somehow is always at these places with his camera. Right. Madam Thoda left. Madam Thoda right. Have you seen those videos?
yeah, of course.
My God,
They,
Bombay.
where,
Fuck.
yeah,
Firstly, there are celebrities everywhere, and then there's someone trying to take photos and videos of them everywhere as well for something. It's
mm,
crazy, and which is something you keep hearing from Indian cricketers that whenever they go on tours abroad, they actually get to breathe and spend time in the open without worrying about being mobbed. And since we are talking about cricket, there's also this funny story of Pat Cummins after winning that same World Cup, the
yeah,
2023 World Cup final, was flying back home, and he lands
yeah,
in the airport and there is no one to receive him and he needs to get an Uber. He's carrying the
correct,
trophy with him
correct.
and he needs to call us out Uber
And
and go home.
famously in Australia, there is no Uber also. So
Die.
still waiting for OTP.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts?
No, I don't even remember what episode of Leftover Lasagne this is, or
This
what
is the
format
first
we used to
episode.
follow.
I
It's
think
always episode 1 in the words of
in the Amazon
Iman
world
Pandey
of
and Jeff
Leftover
Bezos.
Lasagna.
Yeah, it's always episode
Yeah.
1.
Brilliant.
Yeah, but it's been fun. And if any of your friends are not listening to this podcast, please tell them to come back.
Yeah.
We will go again at a weekly cadence,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Let's not commit
Yeah.
anything, but yeah, we will be frequent again.
Aim
We
to-
won't have breaks
yeah.
as big as the one that we just had for sure.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So till next time, thank you so much for listening to Leftover Lasagna, and
Enjoy your fatty solstice
there you go.
with some leftover lasagna. Thank you.
And there's no point in any of us trying to be a star or a celebrity. So enjoy your anonymity while it lasts.
Yeah.
Before
Sunday
Nitin
या Monday,
Sundar
रोज
flashes
गाए
you with a
Monday.
camera. Yeah, you should aim for Nitin Sundar, not to flash you with a camera, but otherwise. Till that
Oh my
glorious
God.
day. It is by.
Leftover lasagne.
Leftover lasagna.
Lasagna, no way.
It's a type of sandwich.
Some kind of gross pasta.
Leftover
Leftover
lasagna is
lasagna
a podcast hosted by
my
Nitin
charge
Sundar and Tony Uncle. Leftover lasagna.
Very funny name.